knowledge. Some people call that a quiz or a test, but we're not going to call it that. We're going to call it a celebration of our knowledge that we've gained so far. So next week is going to be all review from beginning to where we are now. And then in 2 weeks on the 16th, we will have our celebration of knowledge. In the meantime, I will be forwarding videos and things like that to practice with. Okay. I need to clarify and maybe make an apology for the white book, the grammar book. I never taught with it before. I've never used it before. It wasn't published before the last time I taught it. I think it's a worthwhile book for a person who already knows ASL. Like we speak English and we study English. By and large, deaf people don't. By and large, deaf people who know sign language never really have an opportunity to study it. They never really learn the grammar and the rules of the language. And that would be this white book is a decent book for that kind of thing. If you already know the language, but I don't think it's. I'm not really happy with the way it is for teaching things in a linear way, in an inclusive way. I kind of feel like by following the book, it's like I'm talking about this, and now I'm talking about this, and now there's this, which also exists, but I haven't really explained this yet. And now I'm talking about this, and so I'm sorry about that. I don't feel like I really taught you well in a very linear, building on what's already been taught way. So if it's not clear, this course so far is a taste of ASL, but if you're interested in pursuing ASL seriously, oh, that's my phone. And I really should take it, but I'm not going to. You need to take a different course that is more structured and probably on a college level. So my plan is to focus on the red book mostly. There's a few things I'm going to pick out of the grammar book, the white book, and cover them. But at this point, you get more out of learning more signs, more vocabulary. And so that's going to be my primary focus. Any questions? Anything needs to be clarified? All right. Before we jump into any grammar or vocab, I'd like to talk about careers that you could do if you want to use ASL. There are basically 3 categories of careers that you can do. One is teacher of the deaf, one is interpreter, and one I'm just classifying as other. If you're interested in becoming a teacher of the deaf, there are special programs that you go to mostly for that, and they teach based on their philosophy. So most programs have an eye on giving you some ASL fluency before you leave, but that all depends on what the program is. There's a program that's about a mile from my house, a teacher of the deaf program. But unfortunately, they're an oral program, which is almost unheard of in 2021. They only even offer 2 classes of ASL in the entire curriculum in the entire college, and their focus is very definitely on oral. That's not common. Most of them are more focused on teaching using sign language. But understand, if you go on a teacher of the deaf track, you're probably not going to be really fluent in sign language. You'll be able to communicate well, but not necessarily be fluent. Depends on your motivation. The next opportunity is interpreter. I'm an interpreter. I didn't intend to become an interpreter. I didn't go to school to become an interpreter. I went to school to become a Spanish teacher, and I taught Spanish in a high school for 6 months, and I hated every second of it. And I said, okay, now what? I just went to college for 4 years to be a Spanish teacher, and now I don't like it. I don't want to do that, and I don't have any other skill except I know some sign language. And so I said I'll be an interpreter, which is a horrible thing to do. I didn't know anything about professionalism or ethics or how you do it or anything. I just went out there and practiced and learned on the poor deaf people. But at that time, there really weren't interpreter training programs. Now they're plentiful. And now generally people don't just go out there and say, hey, I'm an interpreter, because you need to be certified for a whole lot of work that you do. And if your goal is to become a certified interpreter, that requires a bachelor's degree. It can mean anything, but you need to have a bachelor's degree. The last category is what I call other. There is a huge need for mental health counselors who can use sign language. Most mental health counselors don't know sign language, and if they have to work with a deaf person, that means bringing an interpreter. And think of the dynamics of that. If you're doing counseling and now you're bringing in a third person, even if it's just for communication purposes or whatever, that interpreter is not a machine, and you can't just ignore the fact that they're there in your counseling session. And so deaf people really just across the board would much prefer a counselor who can sign for themselves, and so they can communicate without having to have an interpreter. Deaf people run into a number of mental health issues because you can imagine how, if I don't know, if you're at the mall and you're doing your thing and there's this group of people over there and they're laughing and laughing and laughing in group, and they're kind of pointing in your direction, and you're suddenly feeling very vulnerable and very you're thinking they're talking about me, they're making fun of me, and I'm deaf and I'm different anyway, and so it tends to lead to a lot of mental health issues for deaf people. Not across the board, not everybody, but some. And if anybody's interested in going into mental health, there's a desperate need for that. In addition to that, the opioid epidemic has just totally ravaged the deaf community. And I interpret all the time at AA meetings and NA meetings. And that's because there are a ton of deaf people who need AA meetings and NA meetings. They are addicted to substances. There's a ton of different causes, and there's not a lot of programs to help them. And so they get caught in this cycle, and they die a whole lot, from overdosing and not understanding what's going on with drugs and things like that. So if have you any interest whatsoever in drug and alcohol counseling, there's a desperate need for that, for people who can sign for themselves. There's also this concept called advocate. Deaf people, I mentioned one time before that deaf people miss out on what's called incidental learning. and that just means just learning that you just picked up on without trying. You just know because you're exposed to the world, and that has a lot to do with law and the legal system. Deaf people are just, it's a very, 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 very complicated system, and a lot of times it just doesn't even make sense. And deaf people aren't exposed to it like we are, just by doing nothing whatsoever. And so a lot of times they have a person, if they get into any kind of legal trouble, who is there to help them, not as a lawyer, but as an advocate. Just making sure that deaf person's rights are being watched out for, and offering whatever assistance they can in legal matters. And the only other one I want to really mention now is there are schools for the deaf, residential schools for the deaf throughout the country. And they all need people to work there who know sign language. From people dishing up the food in the cafeteria, to bus drivers, to a whole lot of these schools are residential. The students live there, and so they live in a dorm, and so they need a dorm supervisor, a dorm parent, and that's another job that is really important for as far as childcare, bonding with kids and things like that. Working with kids is a great job. And it's a job that requires sign language. All right. Any questions at all about careers where you can use sign language? All right, I'm going to do what I call quick and dirty audiology, really quick and dirty audiology. Just a little bit about deafness, in addition to what I mentioned before about different kinds of people who are deaf and things like that. I want to talk about a little bit about the deafness itself. There are two kinds of deafness or hearing loss. One is conductive and one is sensory neural. And conductive means there's something is wrong with the system, basically. There's maybe something is misshapen, or something's just not working right, or something's blocking your ear canal or whatever. That's a conductive loss. A lot of times that can be fixed by surgery or some other kind of means, not always, but sometimes. The other kind is sensory neural, where the nerves are damaged running from your ear to your brain. And that's pretty much all she wrote. There's nothing, okay, I'll get to it later, but there's really nothing they can do to fix the nerve and give you hearing. If you have a hearing loss, you need to go to a doctor. That doctor is called an audiologist, the guy who tests your hearing, does all that. And when he gives you a hearing test, that's called an audiogram. And it shows with lines going across your level of hearing loss. And it's kind of like golf. It's kind of the opposite than what you expect. High is a good score and low is a bad score. So you see the lines going across the paper. If it's going across the top of the paper, you have no or a little hearing loss. If it's going across the bottom of the paper, you have a severe or profound hearing loss. I mentioned about the nerve being damaged, and that's all you can do. There is this thing called this cochlear implant. The organ inside your body that hears is called the cochlea, and it's inside, it's internal, and it's shaped kind of like a snail. And that's what I'm not going to explain how it works, but that's how you are able to hear with that organ. But they have this thing called the cochlear implant that connects to this cochlea, and it produces vibrations in such a way with using technology, using what do they call it? Inducer? I think that's what they call it. This thing is actually stuck to a deaf person's head with magnets and very close to their ear, and it sends vibrations and things through the cochlear, and it's able to do this different thing that's much better than it used to be. That I can tell you for sure. The technology of it has improved much over the years since it first came out years ago, but it's not hearing, and it doesn't give you hearing. It gives you something else that you can interpret and make use out of. In addition to a cochlear implant, there's also hearing aids, and that just means amplification. But you go to an audiologist, he gives you a hearing test, and he decides exactly, he can measure exactly where your hearing is better, where your hearing is worse, what hearing ranges, and he matches then the hearing aid to your hearing loss. So it's like eyeglasses. It's made specifically for you. But there's also just amplifiers you can buy on the market that just you put in your ear, and it's just across the board amplification. And lastly, I want to mention the fact that there are late deafened adults. Typically, that means that they're not going to know sign language because they became deaf later in life, and so they didn't have the opportunity to learn sign language. That is called, if you need to know, presbycusis. Presby, P-R-E-S-B-Y, has to do with the process of aging. And so presbycusis means hearing loss having to do with old age. There's a huge market also. I should have put that down under careers, except it doesn't really use sign language. But there's a huge market of people that need support and help, who have become late deafened, and they don't know sign language, and a lot of times their families have written them off and just put them in a corner somewhere because they can't hear, and just that's fine. They'll be fine in a corner somewhere. Any questions at all about anything at all? All right, I would like to go to the white book, page 84. For those of you paying close attention, I am skipping over some parts, but I will come back to that. But it's just a little bit more than I wanted to write off for right now. But on page 84, it talks about numeral incorporation. Just incorporating numbers into your signs. That's all that means. And it's very common and very frequently used in American Sign Language. So I can't, if I haven't made this clear, ASL is really flexible with rules, and it would be really unusual for somebody to say, wow, that's just wrong. Why are you signing that wrong? So it wouldn't be wrong to sign 3 weeks, but it's much more right to sign 3 weeks. There's no need to sign 3 and then week. You just incorporate the number into the sign. And then in the last paragraph there, we're under numeral incorporation, it says you can use that frequently for things like week, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, next week, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, hour, officially, formally, this is a sign for hour. A little less formally, this. You don't have to flip your hand around like this, just leave it one way. But you incorporate the number, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, up to 9. After that, do 10 hours. Minute. This is a sign for minute. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Minute. Year. 3 years. In 3 years. 3 years. Remember, going forward out from your body is into the future. So in 3 years, 3 years ago. Okay. Two years past, 2 years future. Okay. Tense. Any questions about numerical incorporation? It's pretty simple. Tense. Also very simple. In American Sign Language, it's not real stickler for tense. We're clear the tense means past, present, future. Basically, as I mentioned last week, a declarative sentence is time, topic, comment. So if you want to say, yesterday I rode my bike, you just start with yesterday. I rode my bike. That's it. That's the whole yesterday. And then if you say, and then I went swimming, hiking, and camping. Everything is yesterday until I change it. Until I come along and say, and then today I did da 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 da. And then tomorrow I'm going to do da 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 da. It just stays that tense until you clearly, intentionally change it. Okay. So they're talking about how in English we use modifications, inflections of words. We add ing, we add ed, we add s. There's no such thing as doing that in American Sign Language. It's just not needed, though. You just, when you begin, you set up the tense, when it is that you're talking about, and from then on, that's the tense you use. It is until you change it. Duration talks about modifications of some signs that incorporate the duration of the sign. This is a sign for all day. All day. All day. All right. If you roll your head around, it's all day. It's bigger. It's just much bigger. Same sign, but your modification is a head roll. Other signs could be just signed bigger. This is a sign for all night. All night. But if you sign it all night, that means you really had a long night. That means they're colicky baby. Another way you can inflect a whole lot of things in American Sign Language to indicate kind of vary, V-E-R-Y, vary. That modification is the sign slow to begin with, and then finish it really fast. So this is sign for week, just regular week. But if you sign hold up at the beginning and then real fast to the end, that means wow, all week, a long week, just a long week. But you can use that kind of modification to say very for most things. This is a sign for happy. But if you sign happy, start off really slow and then finish fast. I'm sorry, fast. That modifies it into very, very happy. Any questions? All right, regularity is showing something you do or that happens on a habitual basis, like every week, every month, every day. And basically it just means you just repeat the sign, okay? So every day, this is day, but it's not, it doesn't use that, they use every tomorrow. And so tomorrow, every day. Every week, week, every month. If you have a business quarterly report, how often is that due? How often is a quarterly report due? Let me help you. Every 3 months. So this is a sign for quarterly. Has nothing to do with 25% or whatever. It's every 3 months. You just get right to the heart of the point. What are you trying to say? Yearly, instead of going around the whole sign, you can just do the last part of it. Yearly, every year, yearly. Actually, basically, that is next year. Next year. Tomorrow. Every week, every month. Okay. And then for days of the week, we covered this once before. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But if you do it in a downward motion, it means every Monday, every Tuesday and Thursday, every Tuesday, Thursday.
Wait, what about every Sunday? Because Sunday's just this.
Every Sunday.
We just do it again.
This is Sunday.
Huh?
Every Sunday.
Okay.
This is a sign for afternoon. Do it downward. Every afternoon. This is night or evening, or wherever you want it to be. This is evening, night. Okay. Doing a downward motion every night, every evening. But the difference is morning. Morning is the sun coming up over the horizon, done this way, and say every morning go left to right, every morning. It's the only exception to that rule. Everything else goes down. Any questions? All right. I would like to yeah, let's do it that way. Give me 1 second, please. We're gonna play a game called There's a Reason. I'm going to fingerspell to you things that I like and things that I don't like. And because if you remember last week, we talked about topicalization, that rule that says time, topic, comment. In this game, we're not going to have time. I'm not going to say anything happened yesterday or tomorrow, but we will have topic. And so the topic will be first, eyebrows raised throughout the topic, and then whatever the comment is, eyebrows down. Okay? There's a reason why I like what I like and why I don't like what I don't like. When you figure out what the reason is, give me an example of what I like and what I don't like. Don't say, oh, I know the answer. It's da 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 da. No, give me an example that follows the pattern. Okay? Any questions? If you want to write it down, that's fine. If it helps you to remember, that's fine. But there's a reason why I like things and a certain reason why I don't like things. Okay? And this is all finger spelling. We'll play this for a little while. Put on your detective caps. Here we go. Would anybody like me to repeat that? Anybody else would like to see it again? Okay. Would anybody like to see that again? Anybody close? All right, I'll give you more examples next week.
Wait, is that it?
We figured that out.
But
More, if you
what,
would like.
what are we supposed to do with them? Yeah.
Figure out why I like what I like, why I don't like what I don't like.
Yeah.
And
Because
give me what I like and what I don't like.
okay. So we're supposed to come up with examples as to why you don't like these things. Well, I'm gonna go with because you almost died in Mexico.
Yeah.
That's a really good, really good reason. Yes, I almost died in Mexico. I went to Mexico and I was very stupid and I drank the water and I
Yeah.
literally died as a result.
Yeah.
So don't do that if you go to Mexico. No, I'm sorry. That's not it.
That's
Oh,
not
that's
it.
not it. Okay.
I'll give you two more examples and then
Okay.
What?
I just one more and that's it for this week. But it's going to be like, you'll be like, oh, I know it now after this. Oh, you got it right? You got it? You got the pattern? You know what it is? Ready to give me an example?
Whoa, we're not muted.
We don't know, like, we figured them out, but we don't know why I don't like them.
Okay, my proposition for the Beatles is because the Beatles, the band, has a good beat.
Okay.
I don't
Very,
know,
very,
but
very deductive reasoning, very good thinking. Not at all right, but very good thinking. Any other guesses? I'll give you one more example this week, and then you'll be like, oh, well, then I know it.
So you said last time.
It's gonna just, but okay, ready?
sure.
Together.
All the likes have double letters. Feet doesn't. Oh wait, no, feet. Yeah, feet. Sorry. Shut up. Although you totally spelled Katy Perry wrong.
I did.
Well, you were supposed to give me an example, not just tell me what it was,
Oh.
but it's all right. I will let it slide. If you have an example, though, that'd be great. But yes, that was everything I liked had double letters in it. Everything I didn't like.
Doggo, much
Did
better
not-
term for a canine as opposed to dog. Doggo has two G's. Same with puppers.
And puppy also.
Are those English words?
Yes. Doggo.
Doggo. Doggo.
Okay, then.
It's
Or if you want like a legitimate like dictionary word, puppy versus dog.
I've used that one in the past. Was there any you didn't get that you would like to see again, or you know what they were?
We got them all. I don't know if anybody else did.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear last week what you said.
We got them all, but
Oh.
I don't know what everybody else did. We had a notebook. Mom was writing them down.
A whole list here that I've been looking at, and right here, right now, I changed the last word, and then I realized, oh, that was stupid.
Well,
Because
bookkeeper
before-
has more double.
like her, and I don't like mathematician, and I changed it to accountant, and then I was like, uh-oh, accountant. Oops, just ignore that one. So ignore that one. Anyway, okay, all right, moving on.
That was interesting.